Hello, everybody. There is a very, very small, almost infinitesimally small possibility that some of you may recognize my face or my voice. There was a time back in the 2000 teens when I actually had a podcast that was streaming on SoundCloud and also could be found on the YouTube channel and in Google Podcasts. And then an event occurred and I dropped off the radar. And believe it or not, it's been over 4 years. Now I've come back. So the question that we will ask is, hey, what happened? And what brought you back? Hi, everybody. Welcome to I Never Noticed. My name is John Morrow. Those of you that do know me, who are tuning into this because you intentionally chose to tune in, thank you for joining us. I'm opening up and relaunching my series, I Never Noticed, after a protracted period of time of not being on the air. There were circumstances that took place. This particular first episode of I Never Noticed is going to be entirely a monologue, but I want to fill you in on the story of why I'm here, why I am who I am, and why you matter as an audience. There is nothing special about me, but yet I feel like I have had special opportunities granted to me. I do know this. If you were to ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing today, I will simply tell you it's because I understand what it is to be in a place where you are broken. A lot of people go to that place, and as those of you will find out when my book is published near the end of this summer of 2023, you'll understand the reason why coming out of a very, very dark moment in your life that is tragic and painful and full of anguish puts you in a position where you really find yourself backed into a corner, and you have to make a decision what you're going to do when trapped, or not necessarily trapped, but potentially you could be trapped in that very, very dark corner with your back to a wall. Where do you go? Do you push back and fight your way out? Or do you just let circumstances take hold of you and pretty much wipe you out? This is a story that a lot of people experience. But until I crossed this particular bridge in my life, I had no clue. I had never really noticed so many things. And as I have grown, I have begun to realize that the business of taking notice so that you can learn from it, experience from it, become better for it, but also be protected and prepared in the event of the unfortunate coming, as well as being warned of potential dangers associated. What happens is that you begin to experience a more fuller and better experience of living. I'm not a psychologist, but I am an individual that understands the psychology of what I've had to come through counseling, through study, through associations with people that have helped me. And so my why, as Simon Sinek would say, has become clear. The irony, it took this event in my life to bring me to the point where I really understood the reason why I do what I do and why it matters to me that I do it for you. My name is John Morrow, as I said. A little bit about my background. I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up in that general area until I was 23 years of age. While there, my parents moved into the suburbs of Chattanooga, into a community in North Georgia. Suburbia, USA in 1961, when I was 11 years of age, was something that was part of the great American dream, homeownership, because prior to that, we had lived in rental properties in the city of Chattanooga. And one of the subdivisions that had been built in the greater metropolitan Chattanooga area, which includes Northwest Georgia, there were what we call bedroom communities. These were the homes that people were buying who were living the American dream. The single family home with 2 or 3 bedrooms, a bath or 2, a kitchen, but most of all, a place that they could call theirs. And my mom and dad in 1961 moved to a home in a community called Lakeview. Lakeview is actually in North Georgia, but if you were to walk out the door of my house and start traveling north up Cross Street, in about a mile, you would walk across the Tennessee-Georgia state line into the incorporated community of East Ridge, Tennessee, which was a part of Chattanooga. To kind of give you an idea, Chattanooga is in a valley, and you know that Chattanooga is famous for Lookout Mountain, Signal Mountain, and Missionary Ridge. And in the case of Missionary Ridge on the west side, where you're up there on the top of the ridge, you can see all of downtown Chattanooga and that area that we know as the Greater Chattanooga Scenic City area. On the east side of Missionary Ridge is East Ridge. So East Ridge was part of the Greater Chattanooga area, but it was a freestanding incorporated community as part of Greater Metropolitan Chattanooga. And to kind of give you metes and bounds, even though Lakeview and this subdivision that I lived in was not in an incorporated area, it was, by all practical intents and purposes, part of 2 towns in North Georgia that have great history, Rossville, Georgia, and Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. And Lakeview was situated kind of in between. And Lakeview was comprised of homes, subdivisions, development. There was a high school. There were grade schools available. So when we went out there in 1961 and moved into our home, that's where I settled in. So people would say, "Hey, John, you're from North Georgia." But actually, I was from Chattanooga, which explains, by the way, the background. My favorite color is orange and white because I happen to be a University of Tennessee fan. But when I started into my business, if I never noticed, as it began to reemerge after an event that occurred in 2019, I made the decision that orange would be part of my branding. So when you see me, you will see me wearing an orange bow tie, either a white or a soft kind of sherbet colored shirt, but you'll see this gray sweater. Now, somebody would say, "Hey, it's summertime, John. What are you wearing a gray sweater for?" Well, it's important for you to have consistency in imaging. So the thing that is consistent about this process of returning and relaunching I Never Noticed is that I'm picking up where I left off over 4 years ago, but with so much more information. Some might say it's baggage, but actually I have learned through the process that I have been through in these last just over 4 years, how to understand the baggage, what to get rid of, what to learn from, what to store away, but most of all, what to put to work. So I begin. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll stay with me, and I hope you'll consider that as these podcasts continue to come forward, both on the recording audio version of it being done through Zoom, as well as this MP4 version, which will be posted on YouTube. And then, of course, hopefully posting it to Restream, and it's showing up also on Google Podcast and the iTunes Store. I hope that I have a following. But that following depends upon my why and whether or not it means something to you. So this protracted opening remark is just to let you know I do have a vision, I have a mission, and I have a purpose. What is my why? Well, I like to work with people who want to get unstuck. I want to work with people who want to shift. They want to shift their lives into a life of vibrancy and meaningfulness. But I also want to work with people who have experienced deep pain. That pain can be any one of a number of things, but as for me, that pain has been primarily grieving. Now, am I going to talk about grieving from time to time? Yes, but there's a whole lot more going on here because this grief journey that began for me over 4 years ago has helped to reshape me into who I am today. And the podcasts that I did and the videos that you can find on YouTube are very different back then from what they are and will be now, because I have so much more that I have learned, so much more that I want to share, so much more that I think some of you out there want to know and to feel you can relate to. I begin my story in 2019. Yes, there were events that led up to that where I'd gone through great struggles. And there is a story that I will be sharing with you in future episodes about my power word. But today, let me explain to you why I'm here and why I have started my podcast anew and newly packaged, and with that same theme of I Never Noticed, but with a much deeper, hopeful message for you. When you have been married for as long as I had been, almost 46 years, a lot of things happen in a relationship. And those of you that have gone through the marriage process and may still be in that marriage process will understand relationship building is an ongoing thing. It happens day after day after day if you are working at it. I'm not going to comment about the fact that marriage is something that is beginning to become outmoded or outdated. I still believe in the value of marriage more than ever. I believe that it's important. I think it was one of the first great creations of humanity. I can tell you that from my own personal experience, I was married to the most incredible woman that I could have ever been married to. I want to make a point here. Each marriage is unique. The relationships are unique. Those relationships have struggles, experience loss, pain, experience traumas and difficulties, but they also experience incredible joy and amazing exhilaration. There can be joy and vibrancy and fun. Marriage can be times of laughter, times of sorrow and weeping, times of learning and growing, times of contention where arguments will arise because there is no such thing as a perfect relationship. It is going to have its faults, its flaws, its difficulties. And what makes a marriage work, at least from my perspective as I learned it, is that the two of us realize that there is something greater than our individual needs. And when you can have a relationship with a spouse where the needs of you as a collective are far more important than your individual needs, you have a very strong possibility of having a successful marriage because you know how to overcome differences and work as a team, and even do that amazing phrase, learn to agree to disagree, because being together is better than being estranged, separated, fractured, broken, or completely destroyed in a relationship. I was one of the lucky ones, but my luck ran out to a degree on June the 2nd, 2019. It was a typical Sunday morning for me. Now, let me tell you that my wife, Donna, and in August of 2019, we would have celebrated our 46th wedding anniversary. So we were just really a little more than 2 months away from that anniversary. As I said, it was a Sunday morning. I was up. Now, my wife had been sick during the previous week, something akin to a stomach virus. She called it that. But she had actually been struggling for quite some time because earlier in the year, in January of 2019, she contracted cellulitis. This is where a bacterial infection developed in her bloodstream. As we found out when she went to the hospital because she was developing a dangerously high fever, and if you looked at her left arm, there was a puncture wound and you could see a red line moving up that arm. We used to call that blood poisoning. Well, literally it is, but what it means is that there is some infectious and potentially deadly bacteria that she had contracted, and it was making its way through her blood system up her arm. And why it was such a problem is because back in 2002, my wife had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She had a ductal carcinoma. So she had to go through a lumpectomy and then through radiation processes. In the lumpectomy, they took out lymph nodes underneath her left arm. That compromised her immune system because the lymphatic system is important. These are things you learn after the fact. I didn't really know that much about the importance of the lymphatic system until my wife had cancer. But she survived. She came back. The radiation was successful. And she had a measure of good health. She did have problems sometimes with diabetes and with weight. And she strived to do the best she could, and I worked with her, but we could have done a better job. But all of us can look back. We have 20/20 hindsight. This is not new. I understood it. She did too. But generally speaking, she was able to enjoy a quality of life. We were able to enjoy a quality of life. It was great. And we were the best of friends. So my life really rotated around her. It revolved around her. It also revolved around our son, but he was a young adult by this time and making his own way in life. So my wife and I were in an empty nest at our home here in Lakeland, Florida. And by the way, this is where my personal studio is that I'm recording today's podcast. Donna had battles because of her diabetes. She took insulin. She battled with obesity, but she was not grossly obese. She just had a weight problem that she struggled with. But we still had quality of life. We enjoyed the excitement of life. And in particular, in 2018, we enjoyed it when our son, our only child, got married. Finally. As a matter of fact, he got married on my birthday on June the 9th of 2018 when I turned 68. And that was just 2 months shy of my wife and I celebrating our 45th wedding anniversary. So here's our son at the age of almost 38, finally getting married. And we were thrilled. And one of the things my wife always said to my son is, Donald, I want to be a grandma. And I would say, Donald, I want to be a grandfather. So we sometimes almost harassed him to death. And then along comes Claudine, and she is the most incredible daughter-in-law. And by the way, I'm thankful to say that that daughter-in-law is still the most incredible woman you could ever meet. And she is a wonderful daughter-in-law, a wife, and a mother of what are now grandkids that we have. And I'll be talking about them at another time, because the principal purpose here is to tell you about the events that led up. So when we moved into 2019, 2018 had been an interesting year. It had also been an interesting year for me because I had my cancer battle in 2018. It was August the 15th of 2018, which at this current date, here I am in the month of July, coming up will be the 5th anniversary since I had a prostatectomy. Yes, I had prostate cancer. So the prostate was removed. And then at the beginning of 2019 in January, just about the time my wife became ill with this blood disease, I started 31 radiation treatments to make sure that they fully eradicated that cancer. So while I was going through a radiation process, my wife was struggling physically and she was hospitalized. They put her on round-the-clock antibiotic for 48 hours. They felt that they had stopped it. It was determined to be cellulitis. If you research cellulitis, and I challenge you, check it out, because it is still a very real and dangerous problem. And I've had it myself. I've had it dermatologically. It's more of a topical cellulitis on the surface, but hers was evidently in her bloodstream and it weakened her. And how it got contracted was very simple. She sustained a puncture wound and there was bacteria in that puncture, and that bacteria could not be fought properly because her lymphatic system and her immune system were compromised. I didn't understand the process. I just knew she was hospitalized. And they released her. And she was deemed to be in recovery. She was on an additional 10 days of oral antibiotic. She cleared through that. But between that time in January and the completion of my radiation treatments in April of that same year, I noticed that she was much weaker. And by that, I mean the process of even getting up off the couch, going to the bathroom or going to the kitchen or going to feed our kitty cats because we happen to have cats. All of these things created a difficulty for her. And if we went out shopping, she tired very quickly. Seeing that, we decided to schedule a cardiac visit with a cardiologist that knew my wife's history and had cared for her in the past. Reason? We wanted to know if something was going on with the heart because she tired and became very weary and fatigued and even short of breath. But I was trying to go about the things that I was doing. We were technically retired. We were trying to do other types of personal businesses that we could call our own and not work for somebody. And we were going through the motions, but the point was we had each other. And I still had organizations that I was associated with, in particular my church and Toastmasters, to name just two. But then, as we moved into the month of May, this situation became more pronounced because we took a staycation. No, it wasn't a staycation. Actually, we got to take a 2-day vacation to Orlando and stayed at a hotel. We used that hotel as kind of like an R&R weekend. That hotel is attached to a gorgeous mall, and my wife loves malls and likes to shop. So we made our way into the mall. And as we were walking, we stopped at the food court and got something to eat. And then we started our way back so we could get to the hotel. And I noticed that she struggled. And when we finally stopped, she had to sit there for a good 30 minutes just to catch her breath and to feel that she could get up and make the rest of the trip to the hotel lobby, because the hotel was actually connected to the mall. Thought to myself, this is troublesome, but the doctor, the cardiologist, had her scheduled for a visit in July. So we knew that in about 2 months, we would get to see the physician. She would go through a battery of tests, and we would try to get a handle on what was going on with her physically, because she was struggling. Unfortunately, Providence had something else in mind. And I'm not bitter about this, but make no mistake about it. When you come to this point, you're not prepared. As I said, it was a typical Sunday morning, June 2nd, 2019, exactly 1 week before my 69th birthday, and 1 week before my children would celebrate their first wedding anniversary. And when I got up that morning, it being a Sunday, I had every intention of going to church. But I also knew that my wife would probably not feel like going, so she said she wanted to stay home and rest. She did get up and come out of the bedroom after having had this stomach virus, as she called it, and said, "I think I'm finally past it." And that felt good because she seemed encouraged and there was a smile on her face. So I started this process of getting ready for church, and then it was as if a voice said to me, and I consider this to be, and please understand, this is where I come from, I consider it a God thing. A voice said to me, "Stay home. Don't go to church. Stay with your wife." And so I walked into the living room where she was seated on the couch relaxing. She had declined a cup of coffee because she didn't feel like her stomach was good enough for it just yet. But I told her, I said, "I'm going to stay with you." And that made her so happy. She had a great smile. She said, "You will?" "Yes." I said, "What I'd like to do is later on, when you're feeling better, I want to make you some dinner. And then we can sit down and we can talk about our summer that's ahead and talk about exciting things, and also talk about what we're going to do with our son and our new daughter-in-law. And we can hope and dream of perhaps being grandparents someday, because at that particular point, there were no grandkids in our life, even though I was getting ready to turn 69 and she would be turning 68 in November. So we're getting a very, very late start, as you can tell. So when I went to the bathroom, yes, I went to the bathroom, I heard a sound that I'd never heard before. It was like something very, very large hit the floor. I don't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a cabinet or a box or something, but I hollered out for my wife and she didn't respond. So I got out of the bathroom as quickly as I could. I turned the corner, looked into the galley, because our kitchen is a galley kitchen. And there she was, laying on the floor, unconscious. I didn't know what to do. The first thing I did was grab my phone and call 911. The 911 operator was explaining to me how to get her in a position where I could do chest compressions and try to start CPR. Fortunately for me, because of where we live, we were within 5 minutes of the fire station and fire rescue. And the EMTs arrived and immediately came in and took over and took charge. And me, I'm looking at my wife and she's unconscious and things are happening all around me. And I'm hearing things, but it's not connecting because I've gone to a place that I simply don't know what to do or how to feel. I was in a mix of hopefulness, get her back, helplessness because I could not do a thing, and denial, ignoring what was obviously happening before my very eyes. But here's the important thing that I share with you. 40 minutes later, when in the emergency room at Lakeland Regional Medical Center, the cardiologist told me that her heart had not been beating for over 40 minutes. And that if they did get the heart to restart, there was no guarantee that there wasn't going to be possibly permanent brain damage. To this point, I had not let that come into my thought process. When she told me that, her next words were, "We'll keep trying if you tell us to, but I just want you to be prepared." I made a decision. The most terrible thing I felt I have ever said in my life was when I said the words to the cardiologist and to all the attending that were in that emergency room with her, "Stop." And they did. And there was silence in the room. And the only thing you could hear was the labored breathing of all the people that had been battling like warriors to bring her back, and the sounds of the machines. And then I heard 3 words from the cardiologist, and the switch was turned on. And what were those 3 words? Time of death. Now you're looking at me and saying, wait a minute, why do I want to be associated with a podcast like this? You may not, because you haven't walked that road. Understand something about grief. It's a death experience, whether it's physical death, emotional death, financial death, material death, or any other kind of death. There doesn't have to be the end of a physical life for you to experience grieving. And if you have experienced grieving and you have experienced this kind of loss, or you've arrived at a point in your life where you don't know what to do, either you are in your job and you have worked all these years and the house is empty. Maybe you had a great marriage and it fell apart. Or maybe it was a terrible marriage and you're out of it, but you're still trying to find your way to what you're going to do next. Grieving happens if we get fired from a job that we love for no seeming legitimate reason. Grieving occurs when a company gets sold and taken over by another company and our job ceases to exist. That's happened to me. And grieving occurs when we lose loved ones like a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, other family members, aunts and uncles, or close personal friends. Grief is not purely a death experience in the literal sense, but grief is traumatic. Grief is painful. Grief is damaging. And grief will leave you broken and crippled. How do you move forward? In my podcast, I will tell you the story of how I have moved forward since that June 2nd of 2019. And I will tell you an incredible story of how my wife helped me find the answer, along with other great organizations that work with those of us who have experienced grieving, and how I was able to move forward with a mission, a vision, and a purpose. Now, am I over the pain? Absolutely not, because I did not move on. My grief is a permanent part of my life. I carry it with me wherever I go. But I have learned through the right resources and through the right mindset and through the right kinds of care, both emotionally and physically, how to move forward with it. And you will hear me share stories of people that have inspired me to go forward. And some of them I heard on YouTube. Some of them I heard in TED Talks. Many of them I heard on podcasts like this. But what's even more important is that I had a community that rallied around me. And I look forward to telling you the incredible stories of what they have done to help me and the vision that they have cast upon me to help perhaps you. So as I conclude this first relaunch episode of I Never Noticed, this monologue episode, let me tell you what I hope to do if you will plan to join me again. I will take you on that journey with one purpose and one purpose only in mind, to let you know that you don't have to be trapped, to let you know that you don't have to feel helpless, to let you know that there is hope, and to let you know that you can make a difference and live a life that will make other lives better. Is this podcast for everybody? Absolutely not. I'm not looking to be all things to all people. I'm looking for the person who has the same kind of why that I have. They understand the hurt. They understand being stuck. They understand feeling trapped. They understand feeling like they've been backed into a corner and they don't know how to fight their way out. In future episodes, we will talk about a power word that I adopted with the help of my late wife. And I will take you on a journey that for me has been incredibly satisfying, but I would be lying if I said it's been easy. It has been incredibly difficult, but it's been worth it. Will you join me next time? I hope you will. I look forward to joining you on the next episode of I Never Noticed. And who knows, maybe one of these days you can join me on this episode and we can talk about your journey as you begin to notice not just what you've been missing, but you begin to notice what you actually can be in the worst of situations. I Never Noticed is a production of yours truly, John Morrow. I Never Noticed is an LLC. I am headquartered in Lakeland, Florida, and I have a website called I Never Noticed, and I hope you will check it out. It is inevernoticed.com. You can also find me on YouTube, John Morrow, DTM. And I also have a Facebook page, both personal and a business Facebook page for I Never Noticed, as well as LinkedIn. And hopefully as time goes on, some of this will trend and some of you will follow and many of you perhaps will support and also give me feedback. But for now, thank you for giving me your time in this journey that I have relaunched to bring you to a place where in life you can make a difference. Yes, choices have to be made, but moving forward is the best thing that we can do because there's somebody there or somebodies that need you to move forward so that their lives can be changed for the better. I'm John Morrow saying, thank you so much. Enjoy your day and be blessed.